Hi my loves, you are welcome back again to my channel. It's so good to see you all again, and in today's video I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful shirt dress without using any pattern. If this sounds like what you love, kindly watch till the end, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button when you are done watching. Don't also forget to turn on your post notification bell so you keep seeing my videos. Let's dive into the video. The materials needed for this tutorial are my fabric, ruler, scissors, pins, chalk, measuring tape, and of course my measurements. I was just cutting off that part because the fabric wasn't uniform there. So the first thing I did was to determine the length and the width of the fabric. It's good to do this so you know if your fabric will be enough. As you can see, it's unfolded here and it's folded on the wrong side. I would first be working on the front panel, and on that folded part I marked 2 inches. 1.5 inches would work very fine, and I just drew that straight line that will serve as my lapel and also for my buttons. Now I'm going to be marking the full length of the shirt. I think this style is better if it is above the knee, but mine was a bit long, so if you want to make yours, you could make it shorter, or better still, make it long. Yeah, so that's just the full length of how I want the shirt to be, including the folding and the sewing allowance. Okay, you can either fold in that 2 inches or you can leave it like that. So that was why I left it opened. And now I just marked about 1/2 inch on the upper side, and that will serve as my shoulder line. If you remember your basic bodice, then this style will not be difficult at all. So from that 2 inches line I drew, I just marked my neck width, which is about 3 inches, and neck depth about 3 inches. So I just created that curve. Then my shoulder measurement divided by 2, I also marked it. Then I came down by 1 inch, and that will serve as my shoulder slope. From that shoulder slope downwards, I marked my armhole, and that's the line right there. I believe you know how to get that. If not, I'll be attaching a link to this video. Kindly check the description box for that on how to get your armhole. From the shoulder line, I also marked my bust point, which is about 10.5, and I connected the points like so. So that's the front panel. Like I said before, I'll also be marking my armhole line so that it gives me a straight line, and I'll be labeling it. So that's my chest line, and this is my bust point line or bust line. So from the shoulder line, I went straight to the hip measurement because it's a free shirt, so there was no need for me to mark my waist measurement. So I just marked my hip, which is about 26 inches, okay? And from there, I went to the armhole side. I got the full length of the armhole. I divided it by 2, and I also came in by 1/2 inch because the front armhole and the back armhole are not the same. So this is me trying to create a curve. So when I drew the upper curve, for me to get the lower curve, I had to get my round bust measurement divided by 4. Yeah, from that point there, I marked it. So my bust is about 40 inches divided by 4, 10 inches, which I marked there. And because it's a free shirt, I added the extra 2 inches, then 1 inch allowance. Hope you are clear. So from that point, I will just be marking the rest part of the armhole curve. After getting that, I'll also be transferring the round bust measurement divided by 4 on that bust point line. Then I'll come to the hip. I'll be dividing my round hip by 4. Don't forget the extra 2 inches I added and my 1 inch seam allowance. You could as well use 1 inch as the allowance of the shirt or 1.5 inches. Whichever one you choose is fine. So this is me connecting all the points to give me that very fine shape. If you look at the lower part of this shirt, I curved it because there's a way the curve usually gives it extra beauty. But if you cannot do that, you can as well cut it straight. It is still very okay. So here is me just cutting everything out. So this is the shoulder line. I'll also cut it out, and I'll also be cutting out the neck. So that's it. In a way, I'm done with the front panel. You can see I didn't put that because I want it to be a loose shirt. So if you want yours to have that, you can put it. So I've just folded the remaining part of this fabric into two, and that'll be serving as my back panel. So I placed the front panel on top of the fabric. I also folded the 2 inches backward and I held it down with pins. I also went ahead to notch that part that is folded both on the top side and on the lower side. So by doing this way, it won't be confusing. It's now time to transfer the measurements to the back panel. I came out by 1/2 inch on the armhole line. Then I went ahead to create the curve. For the neck measurement, I came down by 1 inch, and of course the width is 3 inches. Then I created that curve. So it's now time to cut out. So simple, right? When I was done cutting, I went ahead to reconfirm my armhole measurements. So this is how this looks for now. Here I'd already cut out the sleeve. In another video, I'll be showing you how to cut the sleeve without making use of a pattern. Working on the front panel again, I'll just be opening up that button folding or lapel, whichever way you call it. So I'll just be opening that up right away. So after doing this, you should have 2 pieces for the front panel. I would also be cutting out 2 strips of fabric. This is to hem the open part of the front panel. I don't know if that makes sense, but just watch what I did. So I first of all grabbed my fabric, then I folded it into 2. As you can see, I have 2 pieces for the front panel. So that's why I'm folding this piece of fabric into 2 so that I will get 2 strips. Okay, so you remember I also marked 2 inches for the folding, so I'll also be marking 2 inches that way on fold, such that when I cut it, I would also open it up to get 2 pieces. After cutting out, I'll be opening it up so that I have 2 pieces. So this was what I was trying to explain. I will just be placing the 2 this way. The 2 right sides are facing each other. Then for the second piece, I'll also be placing it on the second part of the front panel. I would also be attaching the sleeve to the shirt, or you may even decide to leave it as sleeveless shirt. So before proceeding to the sewing, I would cut out my hairstay, which I will be attaching on those strips I cut out. The reason I'm doing this is for the fabric to be stable because I will be attaching my buttons and my buttonholes. So it has to be stable so that it can come out nice. Just the same way I cut out those strips, I will also be cutting out my hairstay using the same measurement. So I just finished opening it up and I will be attaching this hairstay on the wrong side of the strip. I also repeated the same process for the other strip, and when I was done doing this, I trimmed out the excess hairstay. Before I went ahead to attach the strips to the front panel, I first of all joined the two pieces this way with the two right sides facing each other. Then I went ahead to sew at 2 inches, just the 2 inches I marked out. So when I was done doing this, I joined the front panel to the back panel. Hope I'm not confusing you guys. Just watch the video carefully. You understand what I'm talking about. So this is the front piece now. I've joined the two. And here is the back piece. So I'll just be placing the two right sides this way. And I'll be sewing everything at 1 inch. Yeah, the two sides will be 1 inch and the shoulder side will be half an inch because that was how I measured it. Okay, but before I did that, I went ahead to first confirm my body measurement. Then I'll just mark it out so that I'll sew with the remaining seam allowance. Yes. So I'll be sewing at 1 inch. Hope you guys remember that after adding 2 inches, I also added 1 inch for seam allowance. So here is me just sewing on the sides. As I was doing the stitching, I took note of the curve at the lower part of the shirt. So I didn't just sew it to the end. I needed a little opening right there. So I came up by 5 inches. That was where I actually stopped the stitching. Hope you guys understand. So I sewed to a point that it was 5 inches above the hemming. I also went ahead to stitch the shoulders at half an inch. For the lower part of the shirt, remember it's a curve and it also has openings on both sides. So what I did was to fold in about 1 inch, like folding in the raw edges like that. When I was done, I went ahead to stitch. At this point, I had attached the strips to the open part of the front panel, after which I went ahead to top stitch. Maybe you could leave it like that, but I think top stitching it will make it look better. Because I don't want this video to be too long, in another video I'll be showing you how I made the collar without making use of a pattern, and again I will be showing you how I created the sleeve without making use of a pattern. So kindly stay tuned for that. Guys, can you see how gorgeous this looks? Very beautiful. You can use it without belts, you can use it with belts. I hope this video was helpful. If you learned something from this tutorial, kindly give it a thumbs up. And if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please do so that the ministry can keep moving forward. Don't also forget to like, comment, and share this video. See you all in my next tutorial. Bye.